Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In our last installment, we spoke about the concept of sickness preceding demise, how that is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of expiation of sins and elevation of status. Now the question one may ask is regarding the person who does not experience the period of sickness before he leaves this world. He experiences a sudden death, mawtul faj'ah. Did that person lose out on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The answer to that is found in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Mawtul faj'ati rahatun lil mu'min. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that a sudden death is a cause of relief, a cause of comfort for the believer. وَأَخْذَةُ أَسَفٍ لِلْفَاجِرِ. And it is a cause of distress, a cause of regret for the wrongdoer, for the irreligious individual. So when it comes to an irreligious person, a disbeliever in Almighty Allah, then it's absolutely clear the person lived his life totally oblivious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet suddenly the carpet is pulled from beneath his feet. That is a cause of regret and a cause of pain for that individual. When it comes to the believer, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that it is raha, it is a cause of comfort for the believer. So for some individuals, they receive the mercy of sickness, and others receive the mercy of being saved from sickness before they return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now a few points related to this. Number one is that at times a person requires a cleansing process before they pass away, before they return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at times a person does not require that cleansing process. The person's heart was already connected with Almighty Allah. His actions were all in order. His matters with human beings were all seen too. And so that person is now ready to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not need to go through that cleansing process. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never places a challenge in a person's life for no purpose. So only when there is a need for the cleansing process, that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places the challenge of sickness in the person's life before he returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Point number two is different strokes for different folks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with each person according to what he can handle and what is best for that individual. For some individuals, a sickness would serve as a means of softening the person's heart and would be a means of that person coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for others, because of the person's temperament, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not place a sickness in the person's life. Perhaps other challenges will come his way which will serve as a cleanser for him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not place the challenge of sickness before he leaves this world, perhaps because he lived his life serving others and he finds it difficult to be served himself. So perhaps the sickness would prove negative for him, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put him into that situation which will distance him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the second point. The third point to note is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at times inspires a person that he is going to soon return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so he needs to put his life in order. So for that individual, he would have now increased in the worship of Almighty Allah. He would have sorted out his matters, his financial matters, his matters with fellow human beings, and now he is ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So outwardly it may seem as a sudden death, but in actual fact the person was ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The last aspect to note is that among the greatest forms of demise is shahada, is martyrdom. For a person to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a shaheed. One is that individual who passes away in the battlefield. That is the highest form of martyrdom. Besides that individual, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned other forms of martyrdom as well. Amongst them is the person who passes away due to drowning, the person who was burned to death, that person who passes away due to a building falling upon him, that woman who passes away in pregnancy, or that individual who succumbs to a plague. All of these are forms of martyrdom, and these are types of sudden death that the person experiences. So for the person to experience and to enjoy the privilege of being a martyr, the person has to experience a sudden death, and that is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person may have not gone through the process of cleansing through sickness, but the demise itself is a cause of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of forgiveness and elevation of status, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.